I'm pretty sure like lifting weights isn't really a sport.
It's all made up, right? All the lifts are made up.
I love making fun of people. I love talking trash.
These athletes today aren't doing CrossFit because, you know, Greg said on Monday you should only do lifting for the full hour.
It's like great to have you here and stuff. You're doing pretty good, but you're just not really working that hard.
Chicken neck.
You need to be bigger, Rich.
Have there been costs to how strong you got?
If you're trying to be the best in the world at anything, there's no such thing as balance.
I wonder if she'll ever find out about High Rocks.
I know. Rolling.
CrossFit memes.
CrossFit memes. Yeah. Hybrid rock star. That's what High Rocks means. Found that out on that podcast I did with Beat the Heat.
Was there like a rock star attached to it, or it's just sort of like, hey, if you want to be a rock star. Okay, right on.
Rock star and what else?
Well, you're a hybrid athlete rock star.
Oh.
You know, like. But isn't a hybrid athlete like a bodybuilder and a runner?
I think anybody could. I think you can make an argument anyway. You know what I'm saying? I feel like CrossFit is the quintessential hybrid athlete.
See what a hybrid athlete definition is on
I'm
Google.
pretty sure like lifting weights isn't really a sport.
No.
Right? Like going to the gym.
It's your sport, bro.
Nah.
It's literally your national and world champion.
All right, so someone who trains and competes in multiple sports or athletic disciplines aiming to improve body strength and endurance simultaneously. So CrossFit.
Yeah, all the things. All the things. Yeah, wait. You can't, of all people, to call
we had this
not
whole
a sport.
discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
No, in the coffee shop. This was pre him being here. We had a whole, remember when coffee shop Chris and we argued what was a sport
what was and what wasn't?
Sport?
But it's funny, I wouldn't expect Mark to be the one arguing against it.
It's a competition.
Yeah.
I mean,
competing with lifting weights can be a sport for sure. Yeah. I can count that.
100%.
But like just going to the gym.
Oh, okay. You're saying just like cable crossovers.
It's nice to think of yourself as an athlete. You're not really.
No, you're just
correct.
Bodybuilding. You know, you said something we talked on the other podcast. Like it's all made up, right? All the lifts are made up. Really. You think about
and why can't you make one up?
Yeah. Why can't we just make up our own?
Why can't we all? We can, right?
I mean, we did technically with the thruster. CrossFit, made that one up. But before that, I mean, a squat is made up, really.
The Froning push-up was crazy. I wasn't expecting that.
The which one?
The Froning push-up. That was awesome.
Oh, the wall walk technique, right? Is that what you're talking about?
No, the secret one that we're not going to tell you about.
Yeah, they're going to like it. But if you guys pay $59.99.
It's in beta testing right now. So
burns 8 calories per minute.
Yeah, that's right.
Per second.
Or it puts on 5 pounds, whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
Let's play back what you guys were talking about because I think it's really funny. We're talking about hybrid athletes. You guys got much different athletic backgrounds, but you just jumped in with Rich. And the joke was that you were going to try and goad him into a race. But I think you guys can probably appreciate, like you said, once you retired from weightlifting, everybody wanted a piece.
Yeah. And I mean, even when I was competing, I didn't program stuff super specific, but I had a particular intent of the day.
Yep.
And every once in a while, the intent of the day was to pull weight
out the window.
Pull weight. Well, there's that.
Yep.
There's the opposite of what I'm talking about. So I'd pull way back, and the weights are here. The weights are going to be. I would use 405 on a squat or something. That would be me pulling way back, and then someone else, would put a 2.5 on there. But we started making rules in the gym. You weren't allowed to beat someone by a 2.5. Nice. It had to be, had to be at least be at least a 10-pound plate. Okay, it's our minimum.
So we'll do that with calorie or watts. So today we were doing that workout. If we know, everybody's going to just smash themselves and it's going to turn into. I mean, you have a bunch of high-level, high competitive athletes in here, and it just turns into a measuring contest. And so we usually sometimes will, if we're doing something and there's an intent, we'll put a cap on the amount. Some days it's gloves off and you do whatever you want, but a lot of times we'll put it because, somebody inevitably will I'm going to row at 1,600, calories per hour. And next thing you look and they're at 18 and you're ruining the point of, we don't want to run each other into the ground every single day. So we had to pull that back a little bit. But my favorite is always when people come in and they're it's a 5-round workout and they beat me on the first round. I'm took down Rich Froning on the first round. And you're just all right, good job. Get that out of your way. And then you just, it's all right, I get it, so.
Yeah, I had a lot of that. I mean, just even before I retired, there was just it could be the simplest movement. Sometimes you're doing something like a lat pull down. I don't think anyone's ever made any progress with a lat pull down. I think it's a fake, we were saying, made up exercise, made up machine, made to sell you something, I don't think it provides much value. Okay, maybe it provides maybe it provides a little value. But that would be, I'm just going through the motions, getting a stretch. Maybe it was to warm up for a workout, get the biceps warmed up, get the body warmed up for some bench pressing or whatever it was. And then sure enough, there'd be the guy that wants to take the pin out. And we called it heavyweighting each other. Somebody trying to heavyweight you. Yeah. Put a little extra on whenever they could.
Yeah, man, probably. And people can't help themselves. Like with when I've seen it play out with you, and like they just can't help themselves. Even the joke, like it's probably old as hell to you. It's brand new to them
when they say it too, and you're just like, never heard that one before.
And you're like, there's 8 more rounds.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck on the rest.
Yeah. Hey, great job.
Yeah.
So a relatively new kind of like phenomenon in CrossFit, I know you've been around for a long time, is these kind of camps. So like there's a lot of athletes who live here. Was that a thing in powerlifting? Like, would that benefit you? Because there's the possibility in CrossFit that you can tear each other apart if you're not careful with it and have these rules.
If there's no rules or no, some type of structure.
Yeah.
When it comes to your health, some of the most important factors are the ones that you can't see in the mirror. Bloke specializes in men's health, helping you identify and fix the things that might be holding you back from optimizing your health. So regular blood testing is critical for staying proactive. Luckily for you, our friends at Blokes are here to make things easier than ever. Blokes doesn't give results with no solutions. They offer personalized solutions that fit your life, and they make the whole process simple and accessible. I get my blood labs taken at CrossFit Mayhem or in the comfort of my own home. If you're serious about taking control of your total health, not just your workouts, head over to blokes.co and take the first step. Use the code FRONINGPOD, all one word, to enjoy 50% off of all your labs. Mountain Ops has combined my 2 biggest passions, fitness and the outdoors, as well as sourcing quality ingredients. Mountain Ops Supplements has helped me get the most out of my training sessions in and out of the gym. If you want to start taking your results seriously, I've put together a bundle of Mountain Ops products. New and returning customers save 20% on their purchase when you visit mountainops.com and use the code FRONING. That's MTNOPS.com, code FRONING. When it comes to training flooring, durability is the most important factor. With Regapol's established 65-year history, the decision for our studio flooring was simple. Made from recycled tires, Regapol floors are indestructible, durable, and easy to install, and has less smell than other rubber flooring products on the market. To purchase, go to roguefitness.com and search Regupol. That's spelled REGUPOL. Get strong, grow durable, and unlock your potential on Regapol rubber flooring. Recover faster, breathe easier, and increase your endurance with Airwave's scientifically proven performance mouthpiece. If high-intensity or interval-style training is your sport, try their patented endurance mouthpiece. I opted for the Mayhem 2-pack with one of each. For podcast listeners only, save 15% of your purchase at airwave.com/Froning. That's airwave.com/Froning.
Yeah, Westside Barbell, Columbus, Ohio. I moved there, and I think there was a lot of people moving like particular spots because there wasn't as many, now there, I think partially because of CrossFit, there's a lot of gyms that have an atmosphere to where you can go and you can lift heavier. And I was also thinking about this a few weeks ago, how so many of the gyms are set up for strength and conditioning. Mm-hmm. Whereas years ago it was pretty much only machines, and you can get there's tons of value you can get from machines and stuff, but having a particular setup is what would drive powerlifters to specific areas. Having particular barbells, it's the deeper that you get into a sport, the more pampered, the more babied you are. I mean, you probably dealt with this, seeing people set up the rings, and it's got to be this height for them to get, and you're just like, is the workout, then they're just in the seat. You're like, is the workout ever going to actually just start? Right. Can't you have it off like a quarter inch? And
there's some like nuance and some like actual benefit to being outside perfect. Right. Like I think back to the barn. We're about 2 miles from my dad's place. I remember the first time doing Grace, somebody was on screw duty on the barbell. You remember the old barbells that the screw would back itself out? So you had to like in the middle of the workout, they'd have to like every 5 reps grab an Allen wrench, screw it back. I mean, we were going slow enough with Grace, but I think back to those times and you're just like, man, what a different time.
Simpler days, yeah.
It's nice to get into a particular environment. I was talking about Westside, and we used to say at Westside, we would never say this to Louis Simmons because he was our mentor and he was the one that came up with the system and everything. But we were like, is it even the system or it's just the fact?
Just the people together.
We got a lot of animals in here, and these guys love to train and they love to compete against each other. And also, everyone has the same goal, so everybody might be kind of at each other's throats, maybe on like the main lift or maybe on the second lift of the day or whatever. But once you break off and you start doing accessory work and you're doing triceps, someone will come over and they'll say, hey, actually, you know what? If you do that a little bit more like this, I think it's going to help you where you're stuck on your bench. And everyone's helping each other out, and everybody had that kind of single focus. So I don't think powerlifting has changed a lot, and there's a lot more raw powerlifting going on. So previously, you'd be wearing like a squat suit or a bench shirt. You need to have spotters. You need a lot of spotters when you're wearing that stuff because something can go wrong very quickly. You also need people to help you get into it. And so that creates like a lot of unity automatically. Now, a lot of people they can squat at like a 24-hour fitness because, like I said, a lot of those places have shifted to provide more people, more opportunity to lift and to, power lift and weight lift and so on.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I think probably similar to what happens here is, we might all work out as a group, and then you kind of like splinter off into subgroups based on strengths and weaknesses. If you notice today, you had, Haley and Guy, you're doing more like heart rate. Like everybody has kind of a different goal, and so you can almost like subgroup within the main group. I don't know if that probably happened with you guys too.
Happened all the time, yeah. I mean, you did have like, excuse me, you had certain crew. You had like a morning crew and a PM crew, and then even within that, there could be 4 or 5 lifters working together, and there could be like another basically herd of 4 or 5 lifters lifting together. And the best way to get access to the squat rack, because at Westside or even at my own gym, you didn't have just like unlimited amounts of squat racks, and you needed a spotter. So the fastest way to get to the rack was to help everybody else. And that was critical because you could watch every set, every move. And I remember I got to a point where, because we talked about like coaching every rep. To some degree you can overcoach, but once you had pretty good knowledge, we wanted you to be critical. Like if I got done with a lift, I didn't want someone to be like, "Oh my God, that was heavy, that was cool, that was great." I wanted them to say, "Oh, you shifted a little bit. Is that normal? What's going on today or whatever?" Because you're trying to make everything like as precise as you can. And I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to lift it so fast and so explosively, no one can say shit. I'm tired because they just like, we just rip each other apart. I mean, some of it was joking, but a lot of it was like, oh, your knees came too far forward, or you didn't sit back enough on that one, or your knees collapsed. And you're like, dude, like, leave me alone. Let me just train, you're doing set after set after set, but trying to get those perfect reps in.
Yeah, I think, it's a little different now than when, I was peak as an individual, or even when we were on a team. There's a lot more coaching and athletes relying on coaches, where we just kind of self-coached. It was like we were coaching each other. When I was an individual, I had kind of different training groups. I'd have a group of guys that would come in the morning before they went to tech and went to school, and then I'd have another group of guys that were getting off of work that were my age, and they'd, wouldn't necessarily push me in the overall workout, but I would, maybe on the running or maybe on the lifting or whatever. And so for me, that was super beneficial and just way different than now. Like we've got Dom there at Mayhem. We have Brennan. We have Jake Foster that comes in every once in a while. And there's just always eyes on the athletes, and they can always go to them. And I think it's a good thing, but then there's also that crutch of like you can pass the blame. I never wanted to pass the blame. I wanted to be like, if somebody screwed it up, it was me. I was, and rightfully so or wrong, whatever. I just, Darren was always my coach, and he was just a really good training partner. And then at the games, he would just make sure that I ate, and almost just like a security blanket having him there. But never really had a true coach until, Hinshaw came on and he coached us in running specifically. And then we had Jenna Becker, which she was a graduate assistant and then an assistant strength coach at Tennessee Tech, and she was a swimmer. So she kind of became a specialty coach. And I think that's when you kind of saw the coaching come into it. So how much like overall coaching did Louis do?
Louis was an interesting coach. He was a little bit more hands-off. He wanted to like see what you could do first, and you kind of had to prove yourself. And so he really wouldn't say much to you in the weight room in the beginning. It was super nice, and if you're outside of his gym, he'll talk to you forever about training. He'll answer any questions that you had. He was really amazing with that. But in the gym, it wasn't until he saw you like make some improvement. It wasn't until he saw you really, putting in the effort. Once he saw the effort was there, then he would be a little bit more hands-on. But he'd just let you do your reps in peace. He'd just let you do your reps. Because, I mean, let's face it, you're not going to learn. It's going to be so hard to learn something in one day. You might be able to have like an input of like one thing on one particular day, especially if you've been lifting for a while. but you're not going to be able to input. Like Rich was trying to teach me toes to bar today. I've never done a toes to bar, so I got no basis or clue. I've never even really, done like the hollow rock stuff and some of the stuff I've seen the CrossFitters do. And so even just controlling my rib cage and controlling all that, it's like you get to a point where the coach has to like relinquish and be like, that's fine. It's fine for today.
Let's do that today. That's kind of what we did.
And it's something that we used to say all the time is lift it perfectly or lift it whatever way you can. And sometimes you have to get to that point of lift it whatever way you can. And that's a point where you want to be, I hate to say the word cautious because I think it's nice to be a little bit limitless and to be thick-headed and a little stubborn here and there, but that is where you need to be cautious because now you're trying to load something up and you don't have great form. So yeah, I mean you can get overcoached a lot, but Louis was like he was pretty passive with it. One thing he did that was amazing though is he would go over to Rich and he would be like he would say Jason Kalipa came out here 2 weeks ago and he was doing this. Mm-hmm. So he'd do stuff like that. He'd plant a seed.
Just shake the bush a little bit.
Yeah, he'd come over to me and be like, oh, Fred over there, he's been doing, 8 sets, with the 75-pound dumbbells for dumbbell tricep extensions. And I'm just like, I'm only doing the 50s. I usually only do 3 or 4 sets, so it's making me want it. And I don't even know if it was ever true.
Right.
I think he was just like stirring the pot.
Yeah.
Or he would come over and he would say like, oh, Rich just said that it's like great to have you here and stuff. You're doing pretty good, but you're just not really working that hard. And you'd be like, that guy really said that about me? So it's just stuff like that.
A little bit. Yeah.
What was the process by like, if we go all the way back, like how do you get invited or do you apply or like, how did one like in those kind of glory days of Westside, like what was the initiation? It
was amazing. You had to be invited, it was invite only. I remember, so in Powerlifting USA, which was the only powerlifting magazine for years and years, and it had the records in there and it had local contests and people submitted them there. And so it was a really cool thing for powerlifters just because we never got recognition for much of anything. And especially it's back before, not the internet, but like social media and some of that stuff. And some of it was back before the internet and stuff because it dates back pretty far. But Louis would write articles for Powerlifting USA. And at the end of the article, it said, if you have any questions, give us a call. And it had a number there. So, I finally got the guts to like call. I didn't know like what to expect. And the person on the other line goes, Westside. I was like, hello? Like I knew it was Louis because I watch all the videos and stuff. And I just got super nervous. And so I started to ask him, I'm like, is this Louis Simmons? He's like, yeah, what do you got?
What do you need?
Yeah, what do you need? And then he, spent a half hour on the phone with me for free. It wasn't like, it wasn't any charge or anything like that. So he was absolutely incredible with that.
Remember what you asked?
No, I don't remember.
Like you just spit something out.
I don't remember specifically on the first day, but I do know that it was probably a couple phone calls later where I was like, hey, you know what? I think I just need to move there. And I didn't even think about it at the time. I think I was just like naive probably. There wasn't anyone else at Westside at that point that wasn't powerlifting. So I came in as like, I weigh about as much as I do now, which is tiny if you're a powerlifter. Or especially a powerlifter back then. Everyone was like 300 pounds plus. And I don't really know why. I don't know what made me different. I don't know why he accepted me. I guess that should have been a question I kind of asked him. He passed away a couple years ago. But maybe I can ask his wife Doris or something, try to figure it out. I think he liked me for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. I remember I was at the gym one day and I was saying, oh, Louis, he came and visited my son, and my son was was just born. And they're like, where? And I was like, at my house. The whole gym was pissed because Louis never went anywhere for anybody ever. He didn't go to people's weddings. He would like take people to breakfast and he'd hang out like that kind of stuff. But he very rarely would do something like that. So
I had a soft spot for you.
I guess so.
Yeah,
I guess so. I don't know exactly. Yeah. I don't know exactly what it was. I mean, I was there to learn.
Yeah.
That was 100%
maybe
for sure.
Valued. Yeah.
I think he probably valued that.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
and I'll botch this, but eventually, like your total, which is still top 10 worldwide, is in the 2600s.
Yeah.
So was that after Westside?
So yeah, my powerlifting story is a little all over the place. I started lifting when I was 12. I think the first powerlifting meet was like 13 or 14. And then I stopped powerlifting for a while. I was pursuing football and trying to pursue other things. And I was good at those things, but powerlifting was like a talent that I just
came back to. Yeah.
True love.
I always had in my back pocket. And I think I liked it enough to stick with it long enough. So then I got into powerlifting a little bit later as an adult. I think I was around 24, 25. And then when I started getting really strong when I moved back to California, because I took all the learnings from Louis, and I saw the way that he ran things, and I saw the way he did things. And there was one thing that stood out in my mind. I still remember it very clearly. We were on our way to go to the Cleveland Browns. We were going to go from Columbus, Ohio. We were going to drive to Cleveland, and talk to the strength coach up there. The strength coach bought a bunch of Louis Simmons. He bought a bunch of Louis reverse hyper machines. Mm-hmm. It was like a $20,000 deal or something. You know, it was a big deal at the time. You know, Rogue Fitness didn't step in and help Louis and make reverse hypers for him, because now you see them; they're everywhere. You know, but they were a commodity. You know, years and years ago. So for someone to buy 10 of them was like
huge.
Was a huge step, and that's a huge like account, you could say, right? Well, I was at Louis' house, and he has his truck running. We were like ready to go, and he was like, you know, hey, when you get over to my house, we got to go right away, you know, because we're going to be late. So I get there, and his truck's running, but he's inside the house. I go inside the house, and he's on the phone, and he's talking with somebody about their lockout on their bench. And then he hangs up the phone. He goes, damn it, Smelly. He's like, we're going to be late. And we get in the truck, you know, and I said, well, who was out on the phone? He goes, oh, just a lifter from New Jersey. He's like, some kid. He's like 19. He wants a stronger bench. He's like, he's pretty strong. So I was, you know, helping him out. And that just kind of made me realize the kind of person that he was.
Yeah, sure.
Like we had this really important thing to go to that was a financial, you know, thing for him. And he put it off to, like, you know, who knows what that, yeah, who knows who that kid was,
yeah.
Right.
You know. And I think the same thing of like myself, when he was communicating with me, I try to think about that. I don't know who I'm talking to. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've had this happen. Yeah. People are like, oh, you inspired me, and they're kicking so much ass. You're like, oh my God,
I don't remember that.
Yeah. You're like, I'm always super nervous when somebody's like, oh, I met you back in 2000. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? Did I tear them apart? Because I love making fun of people. I love talking trash. Yeah.
Yes.
I love all that. But almost always it was
a good.
It's usually pretty positive. I'm like, whoo, thank God.
I actually met Louis. It would have been 2011, 2012. Before I'd won the games, we had some power lifters that were at the gym.
You need to be bigger, Rich. That's what you'd say.
Pretty much. Yeah. We went up there, and he was just there. These 3 or 4 power lifters. I forgot how we got connected. Maybe it was Jesse Burdick.
Oh, probably, yeah.
And I think we went up to visit and got to hang out with Louis. Man, it was awesome. He was super, just, you know, wanted to help, do whatever, and it was a cool experience. And those guys were just power lifters from Tennessee, and he was super helpful with them. And yeah, he was a good dude.
Yeah, he embraced CrossFit.
Yeah.
He embraced it from the jump.
Yeah, I remember. Did you run any SMEs?
I did, yeah. The powerlifting seminars with Jesse Burdick. Yeah.
Okay, with Jesse. And so those were Westside-ish based, right?
Yeah, it was.
So I remember, man, we were talking about the journal and how awesome that was.
Education
piece. You know, that's something that's missing in the community right now. It's just that education piece behind that.
I've seen people take some of the tests for CrossFit, and they try to have me, like, help them with certain things. And I'm like, I don't know all the details of, like, the form and stuff that you guys use, or the language and stuff. Yeah. But there was a lot of stuff that I could help with, but I was impressed with how rigorous, like, a lot of it, you know, people are like, oh, you got your level 1 or what, like, or for people to, like, re-up their, you know, because they had an affiliate or whatever.
Yep.
It was actually,
it's a real test.
It's actually pretty hard. You had to go through it. Sometimes you had to go through it a couple times.
I mean, I have a degree in exercise science and a 4-year degree, and I learned more practical application at a 2-day seminar back in the day than I did in my entire 4 years of college. You know, like how to teach, how to see and correct. And part of that is, I mean, you get out of a level 1 and you could, you know, might be able to teach somebody the squat, but it takes years and years and years of seeing movement and picking stuff out. And it's only in the last probably 3 or 4 years that I've like more confident with my eye, and I can, oh, yep, no hips, no, whatever. And man, it just takes time, and people don't want to put in the time or just sit there and watch or, take in and learn and absorb. And I think that's a lost art, like somebody like Louis that just has years and years, and you're like, how the hell did you see that? And now I'm starting to like get that where I can see that type of stuff, and you're like, oh, their hip's not open, and oh, that knee's moving. Oh, they got long femurs. We should do this with it. And I try so hard, like if I'm in the gym and let coaches coach, and then if I see something, I might walk by somebody and be like, hey, just scoot your feet out a little bit, but try not to step on toes of other coaches. But man, it's like it's almost like the movie Limitless, where everything just opens up one day and you're like, oh, I see it all, because I don't coach day to day, but I see so much movement with everybody that we're around that I'm like, oh, then this has helped me. Like I'm really good at compensating and figuring ways around, and right. So stuff that works for me, I'm like, oh, a little cue that I'd never even thought of. And you don't think, and you're not confident enough, right? And so like years and years, somebody like you that sees a squat, you're like, oh, shifting your toes too much or whatever. So it's just it's cool to see that stuff is passed on. And man, those SMEs were so special. And I mean, I don't even know if they do them anymore. Do they do any of them?
I don't think they do them right now. But I remember, like, and I learned a lot from those. Not only going to them and learning from other people and learning from other, like, specialists and stuff, but I learned so much by actually doing them. I actually just learned that I didn't know nearly as much as I thought.
Right.
I knew how to coach some powerlifters. That was about it. And the issues that pop up for most powerlifters are fairly similar. But I remember working with some CrossFit people, and some CrossFit people were able to arch really, really well. And they would arch too much. And so I remember, like, with a couple guys and girls, I had to say, all right, well, I had to just try stuff,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, just tuck your chin when you're deadlifting, and like just keep a double, we call it the sexy double chin. Keep the sexy double chin cranking the whole time that you deadlift. They're like, even when I'm on the floor, because their back would curve so much because they would be so overarched. They kind of they get that kind of chicken neck thing going, and their back would get rounded. But I also remember, like, just trying to teach people, like, the real basics, and forgetting that, like, oh, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to teach the Westside method, and this is going to be great. Everyone's going to be all fired up about it. But they don't really know what it's for. And how does it apply to them. And Jesse and I actually got fired from Louis Simmons because we started to recognize that. It's like the chains and the bands and some of this.
It didn't make sense for people.
It just doesn't.
Practical.
They're not going to really do it. If they have access to it, maybe they do some banded deadlifts or something, helps their lockout or whatever it is. So all of that sounds great, but we started teaching some of it a little differently. And then Louis called me and was like, hey, man, I got to let you go because you're not, teaching what we talked about. And I was like, that's a fair point. We had to. Yeah. And I explained to him.
Bastardize it a little bit.
I explained to him why, but I remember in communication with people, talking about, how to squat. And I'd say, oh, your knees, you need to push your knees out. And then the person, what they would do is just, all they would do is just move their toes outward. And I'd stop the seminar. I said, okay, everybody, hold on. We're going to go over something. I'm going to draw something on the board here. I was like, this is a foot. And I'd circle it. And I'd be like, this is a knee, And just you just had to do that a lot. Like, I was being obnoxious with that, obviously. Yeah. But that's what you had to do a lot of times, just because a power lifter is a very specific, one-dimensional thing for most people. And with what CrossFit was asking people to do was trying to be good at a bunch of different things. So then I started recognizing, like, these people don't really have the time to do 8 sets of, And so what I would recommend a lot of times was, is there a place in your workout to where you could, like, let's just think of a workout that has like a deadlift in it, right? Mm-hmm. Could you have the class warm up, go to something a little bit heavy for maybe 3 sets of 3, 2 minutes rest in between, get a good set of 3, something kind of heavier, something that challenges your form, but where there's no technical breakdown, and then take a little bit of weight off and do whatever the Metcon deadlift
at Mayhem.
It's like that kind of stuff.
Or vice versa, or even use the Metcon as the warm up, and then after build to a heavy set of 3 or something.
Or if you suck at deadlift, like, hey, stay after class.
Right. Well, that's I think, and that's something when you get into the CrossFit homers at time where they're like, these athletes today aren't doing CrossFit because, you know, Greg said on Monday you should only do lifting for the full hour, and that takes away from the intensity and blah, blah. And it's like, yes, if we're trying to like stay true to the first methodology that was ever put out there, but once again, it's got to be practical. And hey, we do want to get people stronger, but if you tell people, hey, today we're going to do 3x3 deadlift and that's all you're coming in for, most people are going to be like, going to go over on a treadmill and, you know, hammer out a 5K, or they want to get that sweat on. So we've found best of both worlds of like exactly what you're saying is Louis, you know, sees his baby as the Westside method and how it works. And you're like, yeah, great for powerlifters, or, you know, CrossFit. Yeah. If you're going to the CrossFit games, but we also, there's some practical stuff that can be learned and intermixed. And guess what? All CrossFit did was take everything that was good about powerlifting, Olympic lifting, running, biking, rowing, swimming, gymnastics, body weight movements, and combine them into one. You know, like it was groundbreaking at the time, but I think athletes and gym owners and other affiliate owners and coaches have carried that on and also made it more practical and something that everybody likes to do, you know? So I get so fired up, and we talked about this earlier, of, you know, well, I only do CrossFit and that's the only way, or you only can do high rocks, or you can only do bodybuilding, or you do whatever. And I'm just like, hey, man, let's get people moving, right? You know, like,
Yeah.
I've been in multiple communities now, like hunting community, the mountain biking community, and the CrossFit community. There's great people in all of them. There's turds in all of them too. So it's like, let's just all, we don't have to all get along and have to agree. Like, we can have disagreements, but it gets frustrating.
It's been around since the
for
beginning.
sure,
Like, you know what I
for
mean?
sure.
Like, remember, like when CrossFit first came out, if you were a kettlebell guy, and, you know, if I'm a kettlebell guy and you're a strength guy, like, it was like, not only do I hate the way you work out, I hate your mother, and I hope that you trip and fall. And you know what I mean? Like,
Could both even be kettlebell guys.
You could both be kettlebell guys, but I'm doing the American swing. Yes.
Yeah.
So I remember when everybody at least was arguing about the depth of or about the foot position in a squat, and I'm like, well, okay, at least we're all talking about the same range of motion. Like,
Right.
now we're just talking about foot position. This is great. We're agreeing on something. So I think the politics is always in. I mean, you've probably seen that, right?
Yeah. It's
Well, you probably got bench guys against deadlift guys against squat guys in your community, right?
well, there was bench only.
Yep.
You can go to a meet and just bench. You could also go to a meet and just deadlift. You can also go to a meet and bench and deadlift. And obviously you can go to a full power meet, which is squat, bench, deadlift. But you can't just go to a meet and squat for some reason, which was kind of strange.
Weird.
I know it's weird. But what the bench only stuff did, and the deadlift, those two are just, I don't know, it just takes out some complication. A squat is kind of a complicated movement.
Yep.
So what bench press only, or bench only as they would call it, that really opened up. That opened the doors for a lot of powerlifters. So when I was a young kid, I wasn't good at squats. It took me a long time to get good at squats.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I can go in and, like, you know, set a record in, like, the bench, and that was cool and fun for me. As I got older, you know, I started learning the deadlift more and the squat more. So it's nice way to kind of get your foot in the door. And that's why years ago, when I used to run competitions, I would include CrossFit as well. I had like a CrossFit category, and everyone had like a heart attack about it. But I was like, well, if you think about it, it's a little bit like police and fire, or, you know, I know it's not the exact same thing,
niche,
but like,
you know,
but CrossFitters are responsible for more than just their bench, squat, deadlift. And so I was like, let's make a category. And then also, by them being in their own category, they're not going up against equipped lifters that are equipment. And then also the drugs.
Yep.
You know, it's like that the drugs are actually the main reason why I did it. I'm like, most of the people that sign up for this in the CrossFit division probably are going to be, you know, drug free. Probably not going to be a big deal to have.
TRT came out.
Yeah.
The politically correct
Yeah,
version of.
Yeah, the TRT stuff is interesting now.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I was trying to support CrossFit from the beginning and got a lot of flack for it. But I always recognized that this is going to raise all ships.
Right, yeah.
You know, I don't know what Rogue makes, you know, in a year, but it's like there's Rogue and there's a lot of other companies now coming through, and those other companies wouldn't exist if it wasn't for CrossFit, if it wasn't for Rogue, if it wasn't for a lot of what's happened in the last 10 years.
I think USAW saw that too, you know, with
it was undeniable for them.
Yeah.
Undeniable for them. Like, the participation in the sport just went through the roof. Which it's great. And so hopefully for all the flack that you got an equal amount of people who recognize what you're trying to do. Because those were golden years, man. when those, you know, when you guys were involved in the SA meet, I remember Jesse helped me out a lot with my my lifting as well. K-Star, you just had so much great stuff going on. It was this collision of knowledge where it was just an unlock code for a lot of people.
There's a lot of noise now.
There's a lot of noise.
There's a lot of great people. There's a lot of great information.
You got to cut through it.
A little bit harder to skim through it. You know, it used to be like if you were accomplished, you most likely were like writing for a magazine, or you had really good articles on, you know, different websites, and everybody knew the key sites to go to, and we would all like share the different sites that had the best stuff, or the different forums or threads or whatever it would be. Now there's so many people mixed into the pot. It's a little harder to dissect and a little bit harder to figure out like who really has cool knowledge that I could do something with today.
Yes.
To do something.
That's really that's what's tough about what the space right now is. Nobody, you know, like I feel like CrossFit, I mean, hell, from the beginning was like, if you're not with us, you're against us. And like there used to be this kind of like
mantra.
Yeah, but then it was like it siloed even after that. And so now it's like, you know, I don't know, you know, I remember looking at your stuff and watching your stuff. I remember K-Star, the CrossFit Journal. Like I remember every day waiting for some type of article to come out and looking at that type of stuff. And so, I mean, I was a bit of a nerd too when it comes to like exercise science and fitness and all those things. But man, it
was a nerdy community.
It is a nerdy community. Yeah, but I think it's okay, you know, and I think we lost that. And it's hard, you know, with social media, once again, you got so many different people out there and you're like, what's true, what's not. And so what was nice though, you could come to CrossFit and you usually got, you know, a touch of powerlifting. You had Coach B with Olympic weightlifting, and then K-Star had an article, but then you had level 1 seminar staff writing article. Man, it was just such a cool time, and anybody who didn't get to experience that, I recommend going back and watching some of those old CrossFit videos, some of those, reading some of those CrossFit Journal articles, and man, it was just it was a fun time.
It was. I wonder, on Power Project, you've had a lot of really cool people on there. So like in terms of cutting through the bullshit, like who are the people that you really listen to or check in with on a frequent basis and it could be like, I know that's a wide ranging question.
Yeah. I've had a lot of great guests on the show. The people that have been the smartest and the people that have been the absolute best are the people that will admit when you really dig in deep that they don't know.
Yeah.
And that they would love to change their answer. You know, we got to change our answer. You were talking about like, you know, modifying some things a particular way to your community, like your specific community, not just CrossFit, but the people that come through the doors of your gym. And CrossFit could be written a very specific way, and you can read that and try to apply it. But then you're like, you talk to him, you're like, that class sucked today. Like it was low energy, it wasn't good flow. We had 40 people in here, and like they didn't have enough barbells, and like it was scattered, and that's when you start to come up with being like a little bit more creative and open-minded.
Yep.
For myself, I try to be, you know, open-minded with the different guests that we've had on the show, and try to give almost like a spotlight or a mouthpiece to. That's originally how the show started, because powerlifters just, I don't know, just like there's bodybuilding and there's Olympic lifting and like powerlifting somewhere in the middle there. It gets kind of lost, and there's guys and girls that have done amazing things. So I'm like, it'd be cool to kind of shed some spotlight on some of these people. But again, the people that have been the best and have been, they're kind of open-minded, at least a little bit, and they're willing to admit that they're not really,
I love that,
100% sure on what they just taught you for an hour about the ketogenic diet or something like that.
Right.
You're like, hey, this is the best guess I've got, or this is what worked, and that's what I've learned over the years is everybody's a little bit different, and what works for me is not going to work for you. Is not going to work for you. You've got to find kind of what the best, once again, that diet that you said that the best diet is the one that you're going to stick to. And the best fitness program is the one you're going to stick to, you know, like you've got to find something that, and it might, you know, like we might blend in the middle somewhere on all that stuff, but everybody's a little bit different. And I hate the like, oh, well, you know, meet people where they are. Sometimes you got to do that. But, you know, and that's one of the things when I think CrossFit is for everybody, but not everybody is, you know, built for CrossFit. Like you got to want to suffer a little bit. It's going to hurt a little bit, and you've got to kind of lean into that.
It's a strength and conditioning program. And there's an emphasis on conditioning.
Yep.
Yes.
You know, and I think in the strength and conditioning world, up until like a little bit more recently, it was like strength.
Yep.
And it was kind of pushed around by football, you know,
Yep.
being here in America.
Yep.
Everyone loves football, so it's like be
Cleans.
big and strong. You
Cleans
know,
and bench.
but it's like big and strong, like for what? Like obviously, an NFL football player, they're absolutely amazing, and they have all kinds of different strength. They're able to sprint really fast. They're able to jump really high. They're some of the best athletes in the world, but those are the NFL guys.
Right.
But for a lot of kids that just are trying to get into sports and trying to, I guess, be big enough and strong enough and fast enough and stuff to get on a football field, then their interpretation of strength is to go in the gym and lift heavy weights and not really do anything else at all. And they don't understand that if you actually look at Patrick Mahomes, you know, like look what he does.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of crazy stuff. He's sprinting one way, he's throwing a ball another way, and he'll lift. But it's really rare. Like there's some footage of like LeBron James doing like a couple of squats,
Yeah.
but there's a reason why those athletes won't really do a regular barbell squat. It's because the range of motion is
And
going
the
to be
demands of the
tough.
sport are different.
He's 6'8" or 6'9". He doesn't really need that particular movement. And you can make a good argument for like those guys getting stronger on those particular moves are probably not going to really move the needle for
They're
them.
already explosive enough, a
Right.
lot of them, you know, like you're almost risking it. And that was one thing you had to be careful with, like cleans and stuff like that. You know, guys get wrist stuff. And so you're like, you know, risk reward at that point, you know, are we going to keep them healthy enough that they can get on the field to practice and all those types of things. And so I think, you know, the kind of ATC or PT stuff has been hugely beneficial to those types of guys and making sure that, you know, stability is a huge thing, making sure the joints are good. And you know, we talked about it earlier, we've put our bodies through it, right? But it wouldn't change a thing, you know, like one, I had to learn, and two, to do anything at a high level is there's a cost, right? You know, like I think CrossFit is safe. Competing in CrossFit, probably not safe, you know, and I was fine with that, you know, and so now we were joking, but meniscus is a little tight some days, you know, he was like, what are you going to train tomorrow? I was like, don't know. My knee will let me know in the morning, you know, like how's my knee feel? How's my shoulder feel? And so, you know, 75% of the days are pretty good, but then I'll, you know, push it hard for 2 or 3 weeks. And then that fourth week, my body's like, nah, dude, we're going to take it easy this week. So, wouldn't change a thing though.
How about you? Have there been costs to how strong you got?
Yeah, there's, you know, I talk about this idea of like you set a goal, and then because of the goal, you have a bunch of disciplines underneath it. You know, like a good goal for everybody would be to be able to do 10 pull-ups until the day you die. What does that mean? You know, that means you're going to have to manage your body weight. You just kind of have to. I mean, unless there are guys that are 330 and stuff like that can do pull-ups, but for the most part, you're going to have to figure out a way to manage your body weight. Your strength to ratio is going to have to be like a huge contributing factor. I kind of forgot what your question was.
Just like, what's the cost of attaining greatness in your sport? Obviously, like you got to either what you gave up or physically, literally what the cost has been.
Well, you know, they say like if you can't chase after two things at the same time, right? So you chase down one with everything that you got, and you don't really think about the other stuff. You know, I think for me, I just went all in. I went as all in as I possibly could at the time. The only thing, like if I was to be able to change anything, would be to go back and be able to do it again, because I'm tougher now and I'm stronger in some different ways. And so to have like a second crack at it, and not like, I guess, be more aggressive necessarily, but, and it's not even about like using the knowledge. It's just about just that there's a feel. And I only had like a very particular feel for a very short period of time. It might have been like a year, where everything just clicked. I could do a workout and I could literally feel myself get stronger. And I would tell my teammates, I'd say, I got stronger today. Like I felt that. Like, and I'd write it in my journal. Like I got stronger today. Like I literally felt an input from that day that was so positive to where I was like, oh, I'm going to be able to just absolutely crush it when the contest came around.
That's really cool. We were kind of talking about open-mindedness. I feel like it kind of typifies the arc of your career. And so you were kind of like wrestler, power lifter. What is now? Like, how do you kind of categorize like your fitness now? What are you achieving, or what are you searching for?
I want to answer your question a little bit better about, what did I leave behind? Sometimes when you're like reaching for the stars, you leave a lot of stuff behind. So there's a lot of casualties from my pursuit of the things that I love. Lost a lot of friends, just all kinds of stuff like that, through business, through having a desire to want to make money, having a desire to push things via like social media, YouTube. Like I've been doing this for a really long time. I've had a YouTube channel since before YouTube basically even existed. I had something else on.
You had Bigger, Faster, Stronger.
I had Bigger, Faster, Stronger. I was on another thing called Put File, which doesn't exist anymore. So I've been filming stuff for a really long time, trying to get the message out there. And some people took exception to that, So I didn't mind losing those friends. They didn't need to be around anymore. It's not like I'm saying F them or anything like that. It's more like just they needed to go their way and I needed to go mine. But I can see why some people might get close to something and not want to reach all the way. Because I don't think they want to lose all that stuff. And you lose a lot. And when there's misinterpretation of just even something as simple as wanting to make money. Yeah. Like I make a lot of money and I'm really proud of it. I'm happy about it and I want to make more.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's this, to me, it's very similar to hitting the weights a very particular way. So I'm always trying to just figure out ways to improve. And in some of that pursuit, not everyone's always going to understand, why do you work out 3 or 4 times a day? What about your family? Or, but you communicate with your family. You talk to, everyone knows your style and they know what you like to do. And that's your right to do what vibes with you the best, And so, there's definitely some stuff that you lose. And then obviously, again, if I'm chasing after just strength, I'm going to lose a lot of other things. And if you're chasing after even just CrossFit, you could lose the original intent of what you were trying to do. What you're trying to do is probably to be healthier.
Yep.
Be healthier, look good, but you could look really bad because you could be CrossFitting your face off, maybe not getting the nutrients, the calories that you need, and you got bags under your eyes and you're tired and you're just always overtrained and the body's not healthy. Everything's inflamed all the time. I mean, you can really trash yourself with this stuff because it's stuff that we tend to get addicted to.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's fantastic. I think
I mean, 100% on all that. You get so and people always talk about balance, and if you're trying to be the best in the world at anything, there's no such thing as balance. There are, once again, there's relationships that get pushed to the side, or friendships, or people once again misinterpret where they fit in your goals and those types of things. And so I think having a support system that has helped that, like having Hillary and then now my kids, they're part of that now. But when I was an individual, that's part of the reason I stepped away as an individual. We were having Lakeland and not proud of, missing date nights. Hillary was super understanding and kind of understood that, and nothing major, but still things, I was all consumed, obsessed with what the next training session was going to look like, what I was going to do, what I was going to get out of it, or if somebody else was doing something, how I was going to get that edge. And so, I mean, for years, that's what it was, and that's what consumed me. And then
that's what it took.
It's what it took, and I wouldn't change any of it. I wish now, the only thing that I would go back and change is having meniscus surgery. Other than that, everything else is pretty much, water under the bridge. But luckily, I had incredibly understanding wife and other support. But when we had Lakeland, I was like, man, I can't serve 2 masters. Lakeland is more important. And I still got to compete and scratch that itch on a team. And I could still I could kind of remove myself, but I was still thinking about, all right, what's the next team session? And I could still be a part of family life at night and disconnect. But as soon as I woke up that next day, it was like, all right, what do we got to get done? And, within reason, within a normal job, but I could disconnect. When I was an individual, I could not disconnect. It was me versus everyone else, and that's all I thought about. And it is what it is, you have to do that.
I was at Jason Kalipa's gym, and he was showing me some pictures and stuff, and there's a picture of him, up on the podium. I think it's the year that he won the CrossFit Games. And I think maybe he's holding Ava or one of his children at the time. And his wife was there too. His wife was in the gym as he's showing me these pictures, and Jason has his hands on his hip, and he's like super proud. He's like, oh, and there's where I won the CrossFit Games. And you can see his mind is kind of drifting back to that time, and he's like proud of it, and he's like remembering it. He's like, babe, wasn't that awesome, And she just kind of had this straight look on her face. She's like, it was awesome for you, Jason. She just kind of walked away. She was like kind of half kidding, but I felt the realness of it too, and I was like, whoa.
I mean, there's casualties behind that stuff.
There's a lot of people that you need support.
Mm-hmm.
You need a team. You need. It's really helpful to have. I suppose you could do it without a significant other. I would never been able to do any of the stuff that I've ever done without my wife. My wife's the CEO of her companies, and she runs everything. So, yeah, I would be a bum. But yeah, fitness for me now. I'll fill in the blanks on that one, but I just have so much fun with it. I love to train. So Rich was like, oh, we're going to do this. I'm like, I never done that. I'm like, okay.
Jumped in on wall walks today. I
Love
was
it,
like,
man.
oh, we're going to
Love
handstand walk. He's like, I've never done that. I was like, all right, we're going to wall walk?
Yeah.
He's like, I've never done that either. I was like, cool, I'll wall walk too.
Right. That's
And
crazy.
then we
It's
did
not
some
the first
toes to
time.
bar.
Like I saw you knees over toes guy not too long ago and stuff. Like, see you jumping into all sorts of stuff. It seems really fun, honestly.
It seems like sometimes I'm with somebody who has a particular style, and they'll say a particular thing. And then it seems like maybe 3 weeks later, I'm with somebody else that hates that person. And says
Back to
something,
the politics, man.
and says like the opposite.
Back to the politics.
Yeah, and it's interesting. But yeah, I just have fun with training. I love just more movement than what I used to do. I've gotten into like more body weight stuff. I've gotten into dragging sleds and sandbags and
Sprinting, you said?
sprinting, picking up sandbags, picking up heavy med balls, throwing med balls.
We did a little Hoover ball warm
Yeah.
up.
Ooh,
Remember
that's fun.
Hoover ball?
Oh, absolutely,
We need
man.
to bring that back.
Oh, dude, I'm
It was
into
actually really good rotation.
It gets
stuff.
intense sometimes
It does.
too.
Yeah.
It does. I remember those days.
20 pounds, 10 pounds?
We did 14 just
14,
today, just
yeah.
warming up a little bit. It was pretty fun. You had to
Yeah.
throw it over both rig parts.
Love it.
And it was just a good, like, not even a competition, but it's like catching and
Yep.
decelling on the ball.
100%, man.
The twist.
And it's hard to catch and return is tough,
You forget about that stuff. We get so locked into what we're doing in there, and you're like, oh, I got 20 minutes. I got to knock it out. Oh, I'm going to hit some cardio to warm up, then I'm going to hit a quick Metcon, or I'm going to Metcon and then hit some strength or whatever it is.
People just need good
play.
People need good exposure to training, and it is a skill set. So many of the different things are a skill set. Going to a gym, though, or going to an environment that has like a particular setup that you enjoy, that you like, just thinking of like a bodybuilding gym. For me, like a bodybuilding gym is just, I'm so excited because it's like I already know no matter how bad something hurts or whatever's bothering me for the day, if anything does hurt, which I'm usually pretty good, but like if something's banged up or whatever, I know in a bodybuilding gym, it's like, I'm going to play on all these different toys. This is going to be amazing. And I'm not going to throw the med ball for today. I'm not going to push the sled today. I'm not going to do like really any conditioning. I'm just going to like straight up bodybuild. I'm going to try this leg extension. I'm going to try that leg curl, try all the different machines and the different positions. But I think for other people, I think it'd be great for them to just find what that thing is for them, whether it's a CrossFit gym, bodybuilding style gym. There's many different types of gyms. More recently, just trying to get into like better movement and just moving better. I don't really love stretching. I don't mind doing like some mobility work here and there. I do a lot of myofascial release stuff, but I've gotten into rope flow. I don't know if you guys seen anybody talking about rope flow. David Weck is sort of the creator of it, and it's interesting to even have a creator for it because it's just like you just twirl around a rope. What I love about that is I have a bunch of different ropes in my gym, and they're weighted. They're not heavy. None of them are very heavy. They're just like a kilo, 2 kilos, and so on. It's not anything nuts. But when you see the rope, there's no barrier of entry into it. You know how some stuff you're like,
I don't know how to do
like
that.
if I just walked in for the day and you said we're going to do walking lunges, I would be like, all right, well, I got to I need a minute,
Yeah.
I gotta warm up a little bit. But with the rope, it's like you don't need anything, and all you're doing is literally just twirling it back and forth, and you're utilizing a lot of the principles that you would use when you like throw a ball. And you think about like when you're going to throw like a football, one shoulder goes low, the other shoulder goes high. You might put one arm out, right? And then the reverse happens after you like throw and release, right? And you're going to pivot off that back foot. You're going to get rotation. So if you do that same thing with a rope, and you just come the other way, and you start to flow. Then you start to. It's really almost like a way of like dancing.
Yeah.
But dancing would be way too embarrassing. So
You got a rope.
Yeah, I got a rope. You know, I'm not dancing. And
We used to turn it into like,
Is it like
turn
those
into nunchucks
maces?
or something.
Is it
It'd
kinda
be
like the mace, those things?
it does. It is
similar to that. I've never used one, but
yeah, some similar principles to that. And for anybody that has like back issues and all that kind of stuff, it's just such a simple exercise. You can jump the rope if you really want to, but it's not about like jump roping. It's just about like movement and flow.
Love that.
And it's been great for me. So
Yeah.
I really am enjoying
What's it
that a
called?
lot. It's just called rope flow.
rope flow.
Easy way to get kind of sweaty and loose.
My co-host does it like all the time, and he teaches people how to do it. And he's a co-host on a power project. His name is Ensima.
Yeah.
He's like 250 pounds. He's
a large man.
Super jacked. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's amazing. And then people are like, you didn't get big, doing like, it's like he's not trying to say that he got big or lean from doing the rope.
Right.
It's an activity that he likes to do so he can stay as healthy as he can for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, once again, it's the divide that you're just like, come on, just like, if he likes doing it, let him do it.
Right.
Not hurting it.
Well, it's the same stupid argument as like, you're telling me that CrossFit got you what you like. Yes, of course, Rich Froning had an athletic background before he started CrossFit, but not worth getting into.
No, not at all.
I know that Ben strategically limited the amount of space on these memory cards. Not true. You guys already did another podcast.
Yep.
So we probably got to wrap it up, but I think that's good because it's going to leave people wanting more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, man. Come on out. Come back. Come hang out.
I will.
Two podcasts and 2 workouts in one day?
Yeah.
You're a champion.
Yeah, I think, the first workout was like 1.5 workouts.
Yeah, it's like 2.5. 2.5 workouts.
Yeah.
Jason Kalipa does that a lot too. He'll always say one more thing, and that means there's like at least 2 or 3.
Yeah, right.
Oh, you're already good and warmed up. We don't have to rope flow again,
Oh, I
Just
show
stay
you
warmed up.
one more thing.
Show you one more thing.
Yeah.
Show you one more thing. Yeah, we did a little echo bike, back and forth, 20 cals.
You guys are good though. You guys
12
are
sets.
you guys are so good at. Jason is amazing too, at like picking particular things and then like taking people to certain points. And I did the wall thing that I was doing. In the beginning, I think I did like 3 reps, and as I fatigued, I was able to do like 1, getting my hand more towards the line. And after a while, I could barely do like a full rep anymore. But at one point, I did 1, and you're like, just stick with 1. And then you told me like on the bike, you're like, I don't know, 300, 350.
Pick a spot. Everybody wants to go out hot on the bike, and then you're just doing 200 watts towards the end. I was like, you stay within like 300 range.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he crushed it. And then we did a little lunge and toe to bar workout. He's like, all right, I'm going to work on this kip swing, and I'm going to farmers carry the lunges the same weight. I was doing overhead lunge, and then
Love it.
perfect.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you. Thank you for the
Absolutely,
workouts.
man. Come back out. All right. Peace.